Right, everybody. Welcome to Dojo 281. This is September 5th. Lauren's good to see you. James, good to see you also. Nancy and Clinton. And anyone else who files in the room, I'm happy to have you. Uh, for posterity, I'll just say, or posterity, I want to say that you can, if you'd like to speak, you can click the reaction button and you will find a raised hand icon. You can click that and I'll call on you in in order that your hand was raised. So far, just a handful of us.
Yeah, slow
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
Of course, I haven't been doing anything online either, so it probably doesn't help. But yeah, it's also December. I think this kind of happens um around here a lot. So, we
yeah.
usually
I
have.
was excited that you ended up having a dojo on Wednesday and that Lauren was hosting. I don't get to make her Monday dojos very often because of my schedule, and I didn't get to make it on Wednesday. But I'm thankful for you guys doing that. That was a great meeting, and you know, at that time the discussion was kind of. I think it seems like everybody is experiencing, you know, different issues that they're negotiating with energetically. Or I'm trying to put it that way because I am dealing with the same a lot of things I'm dealing with. Maybe it's just the shortening days, but
Mm.
you know sometimes sleep sounds good, and and not that I've been getting much of it, but um, I know James that you are listening to you today. It doesn't you don't seem like you're in a especially restful state. Uh,
No, no, I feel very alone and isolated, but also really productive. Like when you get really into what you're doing and you just forget about everything else in the world and stuff like that, and then you kind of remember, oh yeah, there were other warm things out there, and um, yeah, it's actually been kind of nice. It's nice to simplify, and creativity is such a great drug. You really do just get to check out, for a while and just really be into the process. It really is just a fun thing to do. And then just the learning curve of the animation stuff. I don't know if anything's going to come out of this, but I've definitely just been just really striving to learn how to do as much as I can. So a lot of things that should have been simpler, or a lot of things will be simpler, I should say, going forward and stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of writing, a lot more writing than I've done in a while. Um, and then the animation stuff. But honestly, I don't do much drawing. I miss drawing, but I don't have a. It's okay, but I don't have a digital drawing interface right now. So I'd be like drawing on paper, and then which I'm not against, but then I there's like a whole other bit of work now where it's not just about scanning the image in, you have to convert it into a vectorized drawing format. Anyway, I'm not at that level right now, so it, it's it, it's been really cool because since I don't have the ability to draw, I'm able to keep a higher production schedule because I can just ask ChatGPT to draw this for me. And it's I don't do caricatures that well. I've never been able to do them. I've always wanted to do them. I've always understood the science, but I've never been able to draw like that. I'm not really a talented illustrator, but I have an idea in my head of what what visually would work if I had it. And I got to tell you, I can't. It's really amazing having ChatGPT because I have an art department and they don't complain. Even it's that is really liberating. It really is. And it's not like I'm taking someone's job. There's no way I ever would have been able to do this. Like there's just no, there's no way I would have had access to these kinds of things. But yeah, it's really exciting because it feels like I'm flying a jet fighter that I thought I would need a giant team and to enlist and become this like slave and all this other, and like kill people, to be an illustrator. Probably takes that honestly, and that I don't have to do that. I can just just try and get the idea out, and that idea is really tricky. Comedy is a very very tricky form of writing. and I don't know if I've got it. I don't know if I mean I laugh, but I don't know if that's always the best measure, for how everything else is perceived. And I still haven't learned how to cut enough. Really break stuff down. I had a 5 minute video of Kash Patel in an FBI in an airplane arguing over he wants an FBI jacket. That was last night. I got it down to about a minute and a half. So it's like I thought I'd cut down into a 4 minute bit, but even that I realized was just way too superfluous, and that maybe it's like a minute and a half. So it's like constant refining, constant chopping of stuff, which is very much like writing, as I'm sure many of you guys write, so you know exactly what I mean. But the writing is more uh crucial because after it's written, you and you've recorded the voice, only after when you see it later, you're like, wow, I should have changed that line. You really can't. Like, I mean, you can redo the whole thing, but you know, it's just there's not enough time to do stuff like that. So a lot of cutting my teeth, a lot of scripts that are days that are just on the floor that are never going to see the light of day because I just didn't understand. But also this is part of the art, which is why I've always wanted that the freedom to mess up. I think most art requires that. It's more about, do you have the budget to extravagantly do something wrong? Because if you can extravagantly do something wrong over and over again, I don't even mean wrong, but just things that you would not find what you were going for, but you learned a lot in the process. That is such a groovy thing to do, to be able to do, and to have an art team that would actually. I can't just fantasize about what it would be like. I bet I could do something funny. Now I actually have to do it, and that's a really exciting challenge. That's I don't know if I'm even capable of, of doing it. So it's really cool time right now. I noticed that my feeling of every moment I want to put into this is back, and I get that way about research. Um, but I'm doing that about here too. So it's just that's why so much of it is wasted because I'm like, this could be better, this could be better, this could be better. Okay, this is better, but it's still not funny. But it is better because I'm learning to figure out what makes things better and what doesn't. It's really interesting. Comedies. I should have been paying more attention to comedy. I think even in my younger years, I always thought that you're supposed to write comedy, but I'm noticing that a lot of it is with this is it's I write the situation and then I look for the funny things that are inherently in there. So I'm not writing that, I'm discovering that, if that makes sense. So it's a really weird art to be playing in right now. And I don't know if it's a good idea or productive. That's why I'm trying to just kind of go as fast as I can and just put out a whole bunch of stuff. And then just, I can sit back and, reflect on it later. And since things are kind of slow right now, I just think across the board, it's a good opportunity to do that. So yeah, there's my report.
Well, yeah, I think if whether I don't know how far you're going to end up getting into fully realizing what you're able to accomplish as an illustrator. I know that you might end up diverting your attention into different areas, but I think that this does overall serve uh, your work as an artist. I like writing specifically because I consider it like the blood that underlines the whole uh, creative craft of world building. But a lot of people see cinema as the highest art form, and I agree with that. It brings all from
Yeah.
sound to visuals to the story together. And this work you're doing to me, like I've always thought that the storyboard part of world building, like the storyboarding is like one of the just the most fascinating parts of that whole process to me. And that's what I imagine you doing is just like familiarizing yourself with all of that with and knowing that you've been a cartoonist in your past. And I uh, I like it, and I'm encouraged by it. And I know I was appreciated everything that people said on Wednesday uh, when Lori was moderating. I agree with them, and I'm happy to be a patron here. And I know it sounds like things are a little tight right now, but I agree. I think it's the winter time, and I feel tight myself, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and
I
if I can rendezvous those two together, it works out perfectly, It's like it if it's a good time to be working on stuff that may not necessarily see the light of day. And so yeah, this is what I mean about trying to have a good spine, trying to have a good posture about stuff. Like when things are happening and and it's even with everything happening in the world right now. Uh just I kind of got mad a little bit today about it a little bit, but
sure. I do think sometimes, James, about and I don't mean to make myself the center of this conversation, but I wonder how different this things might have been now for you. You used to be close to some people that, like you said, were very uh, intertwined in this white movement. I remember the very first time I tried to look up esotericism, and it was like Google for some reason tied it to white nationalism, or like you know, uh, uh, and you had someone here in this group that was considered themselves like the founder of Hitlerian esotericism. Uh, and and there was a divorce there, and I feel like you are paid attention to by people, but I just feel like that I don't know. You acknowledge today all the work you put in November, and even prior to that, building up to November and mid-October, and you've really been driving some important points home about identity and racial identity and um, why I feel like I don't want to make myself the center of the conversation because I feel like whenever he was here and you guys were, and I still don't know how close you guys ever were or anything. I don't know. Uh, I But I felt at that time, I see in you, speaking of comedy and stuff, I don't know if you were the class clown, but I mean, I think you're naturally the funniest person in the room. And I also think that that's like but that's just the first step of writing comedy. Uh, but I do think that you also keep the proper spirit of what a clown does, and that is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. And I think that you are at this moment saying things to people who feel like they're winning. And I don't see that anyone's winning. And I think you're saying
yeah.
important things. And I think that maybe and I worry that, some of what I've done over the past, and you've had a lot of patience with me as I've, learned to be a part of this group, um, that I've cost you dollars and cents, just because like I feel like, maybe if things hadn't happened, 3 or 4 years ago, it was right before 5/5. I feel like uh, I'm so like, like for today, for example, whenever you were criticizing white nationalism and you were harping on them for essentially being born under a wandering star, those seems like attacks that could be levied against. Uh, I have a hard time villainizing Jews by name. I have issues with Israel, what's going on in Israel, but those that seems like those same attacks could be levied at the Jewish people, and again, that's another what we might call a white identity. So I'm all over the place, except for that. I told you, you mentioned Mind War recently, and I tried to get it, and I got Mind Star instead by accident. But then I ended up getting Mind War actually, and I haven't gotten into it enough to have any thoughts. I've just started writing down the acronyms for my reference, and so far I'm only into Mind War, Information Environment, and Physical War.
Carmen
And
just told me today that Mind War was produced or edited by one of the founders of TP USA also, by the way. I didn't know that. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
well, when I look across his bibliography, he harps on a lot of again. I think they're hugely important issues. We've been the world police for a long time, and so it does matter what our how our policy comes to be. And so but I haven't delved into his work, but I'm sorry, Lloyd, for keeping your. I just want I know where I'm going. I'm going to sit on what I've said. And James, if anybody has anything they'd like to add to what I said, I I'm grateful for, I feel like I try to have the right posture, and I've needed to be a little more insular lately to try to focus on things around here. So like Amel recently said farewell to the group for the moment, or and I didn't get to respond to her, and I felt kind of bad for that because I mean, she actually mentioned me by name, James, and that was incredible to me. I feel like as it happens, she was the very first share that kind of drew me into this group. She was, and this is another thing of what you really provide in the dojo that I think is so important. That at that time, it was 2020 or 2021 or 2022, and we were all still fighting. There were real life issues that had real that were the practical issues with trying to live in this world whenever you had to be so on your face about how things were. And I remember Amel, was trying to get back to Paris to protect her, family's estate, and trying to get on. She just proved to me like the quality of people that are here, and there are, we're all different individuals, and I'm all over the place. I guess I these times where we get a little more insular, or that's my word. These times where it's winter time, and all of my creative outlets, because of this group, I've been active on Substack. I've been dormant there though for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and it's been, I think, but my love hasn't changed. My creative, I'm still creating. But Lori, please save me. Thank you for your patience.
I don't want to save you. I always think it's so funny that you think you don't make any sense. And I think that you make more sense when you say I don't make any sense. So I think you rush yourself. And I wonder like what that's about, Cameron, because you've got such a heart that speaks. And I think it's like, like a person that stutters, your brain goes ahead of you, and then you're like, you don't even know what you're imparting. So anyhow, I'm really grateful for you and your energy and whatever you're insulating. And the show today was like really kick ass, and I got really triggered by the guy that got disappeared. I don't know. He was there, and then like my comments went into like, who was I talking to? Was that like a timeline that this guy named Richard came in the room? And James, I want to say that I've watched you like evolve. Like that guy did not get you off a game. He actually just fed you energy. I watched how he just fed you just a little bit of energy so that you could actually make your point better. And I think I wished he could have stayed. I just always wish that people would stay on to Dojo and just get on the mat and like level the fuck up. But I noticed that me just saying that in the chat, I'm like, and he's like, I said he was like, I called him on his vibe libel. I'm like, we can see where your vibe is. And then I got back, I can see you too. And it's like, indeed you can. Because I'm reading like energy, and I just got I like a lower world, like in my stomach hit from that level of whatever that is that's leveling up and maybe on your back right now, James. Not on your back, but feeding from like not wanting to change and like looking for all ways not to change. And so they come on to, like your vulnerable space, sharing your genius creativity. And then they just kind of like, and I just been watching that on social media too. Like, some people that have been here and, they cite what they've learned, but then they package it into this, um, like compartmentalized little shell so that they don't really take full ownership of the whole thing. So, anyhow, I just wanted to share that. I was just still feeling a hit from that show and from that person, and I thought you just handled it like really really well, and that's really what I wanted to say. Not much other than that. I'm still feeling it. And
Well, thanks. I
yeah.
didn't actually watch what all that person said or So it was really easy for me, is what I'm trying to say. I wasn't like, I didn't have time to fully invest in, and sometimes it works out well and sometimes it doesn't. It kind of depends on where I'm at. But there was, to me, it's just such a layup to be like, well, you're gay. It's just that really is just it's kind of funny to me now. How that and even today as I was talking about it, I've never thought about that before, but I was just like, you know what, you're kind of cowardly. Like if someone's inviting you to rendezvous, like that sounds exciting as fuck. Like who the fuck knows what's gonna happen? And then if you're putting the most precious part of you through a hole and you're hoping that he's not gonna do something horrible to it, like that would wake I'm just saying that we're so it reminds me of Flash Gordon. And Flash Gordon went to his soon to be friend's house, and his friend's kind of a Robin Hood cosplay guy, and the Robin Hood cosplay guy's like, "I need you to stick your hand into this tree trunk that has a scorpion inside. And if you stick your hand into this hole and the scorpion doesn't bite you, it means that you are worthy, and I will be your friend." And like that dude, that's like you're coming over to someone's house and they are like they want to show you their most prized possession, which is the experience of being terrified, the experience of saying, I'm gonna, my life could end here, and I'm sticking my hand in this glory hole where there's this scorpion, maybe, and you're having to picture the entire thing. You can't even see the scorpion. Meanwhile, I never thought of this as a kid, but I'm like, wait a minute, it's not really that brave for the guy that owns the scorpion. I mean, it's his pet scorpion. He probably knows exactly where to stick his hand. But meanwhile, Flash Gordon is like doing all this amazing stuff. So it's kind of like that. You're looking at a culture that's not really here. It's not really touching or tangibly talking about stuff. And it's easy to get mad. It's so easy to like, I'm so disgusted by it, honestly. So, I'll stream about that too. It's not that I'm not getting mad, but I don't want to be drained by it. You just have to we have to find a way to keep creating. We have to find a way just to we got to hold down the fort until these people get here. And it's going to be a long time. I'm not lying. It's going to be a long time, man. And in between, I swear, a lot of these guys are going to gang up and they're going to want to remove what we have because they're seeing that we're making it easier for people to stop being white. I'm not trying to say it has to be white, but just if you hear what I mean, it really does make sense. Where it's there's not enough of this. There's not enough off ramps, you know, to exit off of Charlie Kirk or TPUSA or Trump or MAGA or even the liberal stuff. There's really people, they're going to have to make their own exit ramp. And it's going to look frustrating because we're going to think they're trapped, but they're not. You have to carve your own way out of that. You're going to have to be like, I think that guy was probably secretly looking for that. I think secretly he was probably like, I need to let go of my whole gay people are the cause of all my problems. Like that could have been what he was doing, Lori. He could have been literally trying to break through that husk to be like, hey, this could be a good place for me to do that. I believe in that more than I don't. I believe that that happens more than we think because most of the alchemy comes from the subconscious mind. I realize that I'm a hypocrite because that's all I do is talk to you about conscious alchemy, but it's just because I'm consciously talking about the subject. And typically I'm discussing the subconscious things that are happening when I'm in the moment and I see an opportunity. And the opportunity is only an opportunity because I have enough calories to fish. It's because I have enough calories to go, hey, look, this could be interesting. It's no different than saying, hey, Bitcoin's down right now. It's maybe a good time to I'm sorry, it's more it's just the same as saying, hey, Bitcoin's up right now, it's a good time to consider buying in months when it's down again. No one's going to be able to hear that. They're not going to be able to remember. It's going to take a very few people are going to have enough oomph to really put in that time and to think about it. And it's kind of like that with exiting off of this white culture world. I don't mean to keep, if we don't want to use the word white, by the way, it's fine. We can change it. But just that word, that Watiko word is I think it's so, it's just fucking everywhere. And people, all I do is see you guys emerge. People just keep emerging from it. It's not happening the other way, is it? I can't think of one of us that have been like, I'm going back into the MAGA movement. Yeah, we've had the whole I want to worship Hitler. We're going to leave this faction to go worship Hitler for a while. But that's fine because even that is being exposed. Even watching how many people, when you look at Nick Fuentes, guy's very charismatic. He's very intellectually commanding, and he has really some of the stupidest ideas I've ever heard. I'm just talking about policy wise. Just like he's eloquent speaker, some of the stupidest shit I've ever heard come out of his mouth. A lot of it's just Trump. It's just doing the same things. It's not a new idea. It's just a way of performing. These are people that don't necessarily have what it takes to create or forge a new idea. And I'd like to think that I show you guys, as I know you guys see it too. Most of you guys are creators here too, that this is the hard work. Forging a new piece, a way, a new parable, a new song, a new story, a new cartoon that is doing something different. That's the off ramp. That's creating that path that did not exist before. So everything's going great. Like that's what I keep telling myself. I mean, technically, James, everything's going great. And I'm just like, really? Fuck. I'm like, yeah, everything's going great. I'm saying fuck because I'm bummed that everything's going great. Because if everything wasn't going great, I would be distracted. Just like I was telling you earlier about, I love how that creativity just allows me to just forget everything. If I was worried, it would allow me to do the same. If I was like, we got to solve Charlie Kirk's murders, no, we got to fucking Jews did it. I'm sorry, Gamer, the Benjamites did it. And that this will be a distraction that we need when really what's happening right now is, guys, I swear to you, it's a huge fucking deal that even the word war crimes has even come up by politicians. I swear to you, that's a good sign. And I know that it's all mostly Democrats. You're going to have to take this win. It's the only win you're going to get. This is a good sign. These are good signs. Trump taking down the east wing of the White House is a good sign. I've said this before, but I have this vision that he will be out of the White House and that thing will still be demolished. And if that was the case, I'm telling you, this is the great awakening that we've been waiting for. And honestly, we need more fucking cartoons. We need more dojos. We need more songs. We need more articles. We need more stories. We need more campfires. We need more of that. Hey, look at what I did. I carved this separate path. You know what I mean? Like, so to me, it's even more important, which is also why I'm kind of like, oh God, really? It's like, yeah, man, you gotta get these guys into some glory holes, man. That's what it's gonna take, James. You're gonna you have to get some of them to suck the other guys. It's weird. How would you save the world, James? More cocksucking in a trucker stop. I think that's what's. I'm kidding now, but it's like now's the time. 2019 was the time to be like, holy fuck! Now's the time to work, man. Work smart. Work smart. Feel good. Work smart. It's the same thing, right? So that's all I got. Thank you.
Games. Hey, Clinton. Good to see you, man. Go ahead.
How you doing, Cameron? The show was great today, James. And it's crazy. I had the conversation about the retard word and how it's not talking about any type of mental handicap. It's just when things aren't functioning correctly. And so I think that's a real magical word that's scary. But and you spoke on it already. These trolls that come out of nowhere, it is the Watiko. And you're coercing these like little Watiko demons out of people, but it forces them to at least listen because they join the conversation. Even if they're coming at it angry and from the other side, they're grabbing the rope. And so while they're there, they have to listen. And so I really appreciate what you're doing there. It's synchronistic to my life. When you're complaining about all the things that bother me and you do it eloquently, I think, and your energy that you had, like Cameron was saying, oh, it seemed like, you're a little exhausted maybe, but I feel like that's great. I think it's the creative bug that you have. You're like, let's get this out of the way. I'm gonna get to these videos, and the way that you handled that was great. My friend Madison is an amazing glass artist, and the glory hole is hilarious. That comes up because she's like a woman in a man's world, and they're always dealing with that glory hole. And but it's such an amazing thing, and you gotta trust that when you throw your beautiful thing in there, that it's gonna come out. Just got a lot of faith, and so just keep putting your magic in the glory hole, sir.
Oh my God, this analogy. We got to get a short out of this one. Thank you, Clinton.
Thank you, Quentin. And
Thank you.
yeah, retard is a verb, right? It's not a noun. It's a verb, uh, properly. I mean, we can use that. Anyway, I'm the last person to be saying this is a noun, this is a verb. But Brad, thank you for raising your hand. It's good to see you. Go ahead. Oh, you're
Hey
muted.
guys, good
There
to
you
see
go.
everybody.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that.
No
Yeah,
problem.
the what did you just say, Cameron? Because I was messing with the thing. Oh, I know what it was. Retard. See, in music, right? What are we supposed to do when we slow the tempo down? Because it's always told me to go retard the tempo.
Retardo, Brad, more
Come on.
retardo. Yes.
But what's that box in Dune where Paul has to put his hand in the box, and if he pulls it out, he dies? That's what that glory hole thing and the scorpion and the tree is making me thinking about. That sort of, facing the fear to move through it. But the interesting thing to me about the Roberts and the trolls like that is the fact that, like, they're attracted here. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like you're putting on your show, James, and for whatever reason, he wants to show up in the conversation, which is, I think, speaking to the subconscious, why people like that are drawn in. Do you know what I'm saying? And when they get here, when he comes in, all he's trying to do is kind of, disrupt or I agree with what you're saying. There's sort of that deep subconscious thing that gay, obviously, it tells you more about him, where he's at, than you, right? That he's so fixated on that. But once he comes in and makes his point, because Lori, right after you made your comment of sort of just acknowledging that, oh yeah, you see me too. You didn't, however it affected you, you didn't chafe or whatever. You just said, yeah, sure, I know you see me. I don't know if you saw, that was when he left because all his comments dropped out of the chat. But it's another example of someone kind of wanting to come in and I think test that, but still being far too insecure in his position that he wouldn't really show up to really talk about it in that kind of regard. And so I saw my dad earlier, and so an interesting thing about that was it was actually me and my mom talking, and something had come up, and I was talking about the family friends that I talked to the other day, and Ice had come up. So when Ice come up, my dad jumps in and he's talking about the fact that illegals, like we were talking about due process, right? And he was saying that illegals don't get due process, or that's not a thing. So I said, okay, not even arguing that point, but the fact that citizens, like about somewhere like 40%, the numbers, but about 40% or so of the folks released from ICE is because they turned out to be citizens. And so that was the point I was making to him. I said, okay, I'm not arguing your point about the illegals, but the fact that citizens are not allowed to be arrested. And we didn't get too far in that. And of course, he didn't really want to defend that posture before he kind of gets up and smiles and kind of shakes my hand and said, truce, and leaves the room for a minute. You know what I mean? It's that same context of, and I see this all the time, like on Facebook, for example. It's one thing if I see someone else's post and I go comment on it and we want to have an exchange, okay. It's another thing when it's your mat. You're in your yard playing and someone comes into your yard because they're bothered by what you said, right? And then they get there and it's kind of like I've experienced multiple times. They don't even seem to be aware of the fact that I didn't come into their yard spraying anything around. I'm just here doing my thing, and they saw it and it bothered them. It hit some of that subconscious, and they're like, and they have to come in and try and stop you. But what's so funny is how often it goes to things like gay, which is so kindergarten to me. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like they don't really engage on that level of, again, the hurts, right? I love the hurts mold as far as like professional wrestling, like you can engage at certain hurts, but I'm talking on a certain hertz, right? Or what we're discussing. And it's like they're coming in at 3 hertz, not even tuning into what's actually being said and trying to sort of bring the conversation back down to 3 hertz. And it's always interesting to me to how quickly folks like Robert, when you just kind of demonstrate that, like you don't fold under their pressure or go to their mate or get triggered, really, because isn't that a lot of the process we've gone through as far as like a lot of the trolls or a lot of that energy? It really is just searching for triggers, because then they don't have to look at what they're saying. Because if I can trigger you, that then I don't have to think any further about what you're saying. Do you know what I'm saying? And so the less we're being triggered, and I think that we've all grown at this over time, the less we're triggered, I think the more, like the way you handled it today, it was funny, it was hilarious, and it was, but I didn't think it was like, it didn't sink to the level of 3 hertz, right? Of hey, no, you're gay. No, it was like, okay, I see this sort of childish mentality and what it's trying to do, and I'm no longer being pulled down to that level. I really think a lot of my time in terms of on social media, engaging in these conversations and things like that, that's what I think I've learned the most, is taking care of my triggers and such like that, to where it's like I don't emotionally respond. And so it's like they don't throw us off our game anymore. And I do think it's so important because, like you're mentioning, James, forging a new territory is always the hardest. Taking the first one to see the jungle there and start carving a path is always the hardest. But you see time and time again, a lot of people are sitting in this place and they want another path, but they just do what they do because it's all I know. And as soon as you see it, the trailblazers set the trail. I do think a lot of people who are already on that edge, it's like as soon as they see a way, and I think this is kind of how sort of conscious grows and awakens a little bit, is I think there's a lot of people who really do want to move beyond a lot of these systems, but they're scared because they don't see any other game in town. And it will take the people who can face that fear and just boldly start stepping that way. And as soon as they start, so to the point of what's happening right now, James, and where we're at, and I do think that there is a catching up going to happen, but I think a lot of it is people really wanting that comfort of seeing that path and seeing someone successfully start moving that path, that a whole lot of momentum starts pushing that way. But not a lot of people are bold enough and frankly just willing to stay in discomfort for as long as that. Like most people, I think, James, would devolve back into whatever's comfortable, whatever will let them back into the herd. We all know this, just because it's easier, and it's so hard to be the first one to step out, you know?
Yeah, if you think about it, like consciousness is like a plant, and it as the plant gets hardy, it's able to grow more features like berries, and shit, and flowers and shit. And if his name's, I can't remember if his name was Jonathan, let's just call him Jonathan. But when Jonathan comes in, it's not like he was ever a fully developing plant. He has everything he has, and he wants to grow. And he comes to us and he's like, how can I grow? And the way that we tell him to grow is you should poke fun at James for wanting to meet in a truck stop and have a impromptu blowjob. So you guys didn't meet the live stream. That was basically what he was sort of said. That is him reaching for growth. He's reaching for growth, and I think what he's telling me is really something quite simple. I think this might be hard for some people to understand. I think I'm probably a sexual deviant, honestly, in the way that I just look at sexuality now because of Ark of Baphomet, to be honest with you. I think that the blinders that are placed on early consciousness, the small plant, are so important that it says, look, you're a male, you're a female, because it gives them something to do. They don't know what they're doing yet. You're telling a child, hey, let's fold your socks. The child doesn't understand. There's no concept of why we're folding socks, what socks are for, why we need to match them. But this is insane. That's not the point. The point is to get them on that track. It will eventually catch up and it will eventually help. And I think that, hey, don't be gay is that track. I think, hey, be a male is that track. A man is this. Never put this in your mouth. Always want to put these things in your mouth. Never say this. Always say this. Women, completely different. You're going to want this thing. You don't want it in your mouth. You want it in this. And then you don't want this. You want these, but you only want those if they have that. And then only if they have this. And then you say this and this. And you have to hate anyone who says that. And meanwhile, go with the man. And you have to hate anything that says that. This is why I think the trans LGBT thing, the rainbow thing, it really is just the rainbow essence. I'm telling you, this is why it's such a psychic mindfuck right now. This has been the thing that is, I think, awakening more consciousness than anyone else because it's eliminating that structure, which is why we have a war on gay. We have a war on gay because it would be necessary for Jonathan. The very first thing he's going to have to be able to do before he could even think about forging his own path is to look at the futility of how silly it is that I'm supposed to hate myself for enjoying my body based on the gender of someone else. This is a very, very specific, targeted kind of mind spell. The mind spell says you will enjoy yourself, but only if you're following your gender role. And that this is not a mind control fuck. You could call it that. This is a self mind control fuck. This is a how do I grow up to I want to fucking make it. I want to be a sequoia too, Dad. How do I do it? First, you need to say that you're not gay. I swear to you, that's what it takes. That's what it takes. If you want to be a sequoia, I'm going to need you to go into a 200-year period where you say you're not gay, where all you do is prove how hardy your nuts are, how thick your stalk, how big your root is. Just do nothing but that. And then after you do that, General Sherman, that's the name of this tree. After you do that, General Sherman, after 200, 300 years of insisting you're not gay, I want you to go gay. I swear to fuck, that's how the psyche works. I swear to God, that's how the psychology works. It has nothing to do with who you touch. It has nothing to do with how you dress or whose genitals you or what social structure. It has nothing to do with social structure at all. Nothing at all. This has more to do with how you feel about yourself. When you look in the mirror, this is why I think I'm a sexual deviant. I do not see a man. I do not see a woman. I see a James. I call myself a hermaphroditic creature. I know that sounds deviant as fuck. I'm a hermaphroditic creature. I don't have to pretend to be with anyone else when I'm kind of pleasuring myself. I don't have I don't even mean to bring this up, guys. I'm just telling you that if you think about what does your psyche have to do before you're allowed to pleasure yourself, I think there's a huge clue there. And I think it's only something you could talk about to yourself. It's not going to help. I mean, you could book a consult with me if you want, but it's like this is very private stuff because of how important you are. Like, that's why. And I don't believe in sexual liberation in the sense of you have to tell it. No, I think you're supposed to keep the shit secret. Honestly, I think you're supposed to be ashamed of it because the shame is truly the only thing that keeps that pilot light on, that keeps that sacredness, even when you're drunk as shit. Even someone super drunk mostly can keep their clothes on. Not all the way, but mostly. It's these are different layers of the onion that break down, but also they build back up. And when you're seeing someone who's in a culture of I'm white and I don't like gay people and Donald Trump's going to save me, that is a 4-layered onion, isn't it? It's not a 7-layered onion. It's a 4-layered onion. So it thinks Outback Steakhouse is Australia. It thinks, right? Like it has this very, nothing wrong with that. Those things made sense when you were 7, when you were 14. Those things made sense to you tomorrow when you finally reach up to that level. I have the same kind of understanding. I the same kind of thing, right? So it's you're looking at consciousness that was never online. And what makes you feel lose calories is thinking that it used to be online and that something happened, that somehow it broke, that somehow there's something in the world that's causing. And no, you're looking at it the opposite way. This is fucking progress. You're watching something arrive. You're not watching something deteriorate. You're watching something arrive for the very first time. The reason why you see it now is because it was never there. It was even a 3-layer onion before. It was a 3-layer onion before. And still somehow it was able to drive a vehicle in traffic. Do you understand how, guys, I don't think you understand how amazing the consciousness is. that you can do all kinds, you can operate heavy machinery. You can drive a bus full of children and still not be online yet as a soul. I swear to you, that's how it works. I swear to you. That's amazing. It's amazing that that happens. So it's more about tracking where's the progress of all this and kind of where are things going from there. Because honestly, it's gangbusters. It's gangbusters. It'd be great if some of that TPUSA money could be in our layer. But honestly, it wouldn't make sense that way. We would be the retards then. We would be the retards then. And we're retards, but we're retards to the Lemurian Atlantis fuckers. Those dudes are like singing colors and stuff. You know what I mean? So go ahead, Brad.
Well, I was just going to ask your thoughts, James, on the fact that as we're talking about sort of sexuality and the shame around it, when you were mentioning Romans and like if you go back to Greek art, like homosexuality like wasn't an issue, at that time when you kind of look at the art, and I wondered like, did they even sort of designate it a name? I know they didn't call it gay, but I'm saying did they even, because I don't get the sense that they even saw that as a thing at all. And so what I'm
It's
wondering
not a
is,
thing, Brad. Sorry to interrupt. That's a white thing. That white is a product of colonialization, pretty much.
right,
It's a byproduct of it. So when you bleach all of the attachment or connection to the land out, the sexuality is just as much of a myth as this invisible God. So with this baby plant, what it lacks is an identity. It's thinking that it's separate from everything because it hasn't made the connection to the mycelium, right? And so once it becomes connected, you realize that we're no different than the other. But this white thing that's so crazy, that's so no seasoning in the flavor, no culture in society, no respect for elders, no understanding of death, no accountability for anything. They're not putting back into, it's just taking out. So when James is a muralist and he's doing this beautiful piece on a wall and these fucktards roll in and they want to tag it, they're not even, they're making a bad name for the graffiti artist when they're tagging the thing because they live in such a dualistic place that they're just going to be an agitator as opposed to being like a collective of people filled with solutions. Not that they have an answer, but every one of us has gone through some sort of thing. As white as we may be, we are seasoned fucking people, and we've all been hurt, and we've all been loved, and we've all been ashamed. And that denial of the rainbow is this lack of appreciation for the other. And they really just need a hug, maybe look in the mirror, maybe touch themselves a little bit more. I don't know what the problem is, but there's a bit of the
Yeah.
cure is in this room. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
oh
and
no,
Brad,
hey, great.
I want you to go back too, but also I want to say it's not that they don't touch themselves; it's that they do not allow themselves to love themselves when they touch themselves. I'm sorry, but it's like that's the biggie. That this is where all the magic, because all sex is magic. So if you are participating in sex with yourself, how you psychically feel about that is a very, very important thing. I'm sorry to interrupt, Brad. I really want to hear where you're going.
Oh no, I just like Clint was saying. So the as far as what we're talking about, because I definitely hear what you're saying. I agree with you totally about the fact that a lot of this shame coming. But is to clarify is what you're saying that, for example, when I was talking about ancient Greece and Roman times, that just consciousness had not, is what you're saying. Consciousness, you're saying, had not come to the point of actually seeing themselves as individuals, so they just didn't have the capacity for shame
So
yet.
yeah,
Kind of
it's hard to when I'm trying to picture what was going on there. I think it's a lot like now, a lot like now, and we don't know the percentages because people are hiding. We don't have we don't even have a test for consciousness. We don't even have a tangible definition of consciousness. We don't even have a science that studies consciousness. So it's like, what the fuck? And I think what you're looking at is that in Roman and Greek times, you had a few people. There's always going to be someone that is going to have to be leading in some sort of way. And when they have all these calories, they're going to grow the frontal lobe before anyone else would. So it seems like what the reason why Caesar was so popular was because Caesar was conscious. The reason why, maybe it's not even that he was conscious, maybe actually he was unconscious, but the reason why culture was able to work that well is because it only takes a few. It only takes a few that have a thicker onion early. And those ones are probably given that thickness by trauma, honestly. They were probably the Canaanites. They were probably the ones that were fucked over first. It's like, look, I need you to live in trauma. It's like, well, why do you need me to do that? Because it'll make you wake up faster. It's like, well, what the fuck, man? It's like, look, if it makes you feel any better, you get to fucking kill your brother. It's like, oh, this is bullshit. But ultimately, this is what happens. I look at my own life. I think about the way I grew up. I mean, fuck, my mom's will be dead now for almost a year, and I'm still waking up in the morning very angry, very angry. And also, I'm told by people, James, you're so lit and cautious. And it's, I know those things are the same. I know they're related. I fucking know they're related. I know they're related. This is why I have such a different take on evil. It's like I have such a different take on how all this stuff works. So I don't even think that being gay necessarily means you're being conscious. It could be, Brad, that this is like a sine wave. It could be that when you're on two layers, you need to develop your brain's pleasure centers. And so the debauchery, drunkenness, all of the monthly orgies would be quite crucial and important in Greece and Rome. The monthly let's have no inhibitions was actually quite necessary for the brain to grow. But then the next layer had to be this layer of abstinence. It burns when I pee.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So now you're developing. So what I'm saying is that if we think about what is gay really, I think it's just more of a temperature showing you this other kind of movement, this other kind of growth, and that we'd see periods where we're super gay and super not gay. But it's I think it's actually more accurate to call it super fertilitas and non-super fertilitas. And I'm under the impression that the on the way to being super fertile and on the way of leaving super fertile, you have gay. So it's super complex, but I'm just trying to say if you think about it, I think it's a way that nature has its break because nature does this too. Nature will find itself, hey, we need to get some gay in here. We're proliferating too much. Or now that we have this whole bank, the side of this hill to us, why don't we just be gay? And then it starts to turn into things like that because it's absolutely necessary. So you're dealing with absolute people, and this is really what an early consciousness would have is I have to have a single identity that's objective, that's hypothetically the same that everyone agrees to, and that would be a very primitive early form of consciousness that would be absolutely necessary in the beginning, but also would be completely hypocritical, self-deprecating, embarrassing later on, just like gay. But that there's a time in culture where we're like, God, I really look up to that guy because he's gayer than me. I swear that's probably was a time, and probably in Greece, honestly, walking around doing their Olympics all nude. It's probably like led to a lot of dick sucking. I'm not gonna lie, it's probably a lot of that. It's just like I really love the way you threw that javelin. I want to suck you off now. That shit probably happened, but it probably happened at a time when you needed that to happen because you needed the brain to feel pleasure because the pleasure would allow Prometheus, the flame, to stay alive long enough to where you could possibly hope for, possibly dream of the idea of abstinence. And you can't. How do you explain that to someone in Greece? You don't.
Right. Yeah.
Same way you explain to someone in MAGA, because even your friend Brad, I know that you know how the Constitution works. You had already abandoned. Well, actually, the Constitution is for anybody. It's not for citizens. So we
Right.
would owe due process to anyone. But you realize I can't have this conversation with this person. He already thinks, well, non-citizen, you're lower than me. So I have to appeal to him on a different level. The same way I would try and convince a 5-year-old, hey, here's why I don't think you should just put the fork in there. I'm not going to explain, well, Tesla, you know, really, he would have had a better thing, and you would have really been shocked. But still, it's better. But let me tell you about Tesla first. You're not going to do that to 5-year-olds. It's not going to fucking happen. In fact, you're not even going to explain it. You need to inject fear. You need to go. You need to make them jump because it's the only way you could talk to them right now. So now you know how Trump works. Now you know how Crook Flail works. Now you know how every pharaoh has to do it, right? We're the idiots. We're the ones like, why can't we just reason with people? And Pharaoh's just like, God, you guys, no idea what's out there. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, James. Hey, Lori, what you got? Good to see you raising your hand again. Thanks.
I wanted to talk about animism, and I wanted to talk about the fall of consciousness because I think animism is kind of that normative, and I think people forgot that all things are conscious, and they started to look for things outside of themselves. And I think in Greece, it was terrifying. They had nymphs they had springs that they worshipped, and then all of a sudden they were starting to forget and forget and forget. And we all went into this Squatico in the head, and everyone's forgotten that we live in a live world and in a live universe, and everything is alive and it's conscious and it can talk to you if you get slowed down enough to listen. But how many people are really truly able to listen? I mean, they're traumatized by the trauma, and then traumatized by multiple generations of trauma. And yet, you've got this sun that just shoots out like unconditional love energy, and the Mother Earth that does the same. This natural animism that shamans, like if I were to say one thing that I could not get in all the years I traveled to Peru, we'd show up right here in our heads, freaking the freak out, so disconnected, so freaked and scared, and everything was there just to like can you hear the water? Can it was like Helen Keller. No, we can't talk to water. Water's not alive. I mean, but it is alive. Rivers are alive. The sun is alive. The earth is alive. The trees are alive. They're all talking to us. And we forget. We're so like stopped up. It's like a constipation of the head. And when I love James' work when he did he found that research on the speaking of the Greek. And they spoke like birds. They spoke bird language. They had this like that. I was like, yeah.
What
We
beautiful.
we have to speak ourselves back into some kind of connection to I don't know. For me, it's animism and really what the consciousness is. And like, I have a hard time with the human species. I have a real hard time with the human species, and I have a hard time with the whiteness of the human species. Of that nothing counts other than what the last 100 years, 200 years,
if that.
How long has the universe been alive? Come on. We have to tap in differently. And I'm tapping into what are the sounds? What does the earth sound like? What are the frequencies of it? What is the art trying to get me to express? And I'm like, I'm a little frustrated as well, James, with, like, wake the whatever. I'm like, and I just say that to myself, I think that in the what was it in the Native American, it was double spirited people were the gay people. They were special. I traveled to Peru 7 years. I studied with this indigenous, and they thought that twin spirited people were special. And then we had all these lesbians on the trip. Well, the lesbians hated the men. And I'm like, how are you going to do the divine feminine masculine if you can't even stand the part of that's in yourself, and that you're acting like a man and you hate men? I'm like, that's crazy. I was like, so we have this guy that comes in, talking about James being a puffer or something. I don't know what it was, a pink, whatever. And I was like, it was so low resonance. And I'm like, we have a long way to go. But I just want to focus on what Clinton shared was, it's like there's this natural tapping into what is inside of you that is in the healed state rather than the unhealed state. And that's my 2 cents.
Just to conclude that, because I like your thing about the sine wave, James, and to what you're saying, Lori, it's isn't that funny? It's like we're in animism, right? Don't have an individuality, then you have to become an individual, right? And then almost like you have to, after you have itself, reconnect with the world again, right? That's all, yeah.
Yeah, and if you consider bicameralism, this Joyce idea that one of the reasons why we hallucinated so much more then than we do now is because our corpus callosum, the connection between the two lobes. Think about each of your brain's lobe is an individual person, believe it or not. It's its own psyche, its own personality, and that the connection between the two is why we're here. It takes so long to unite these two things, and that when they talk to each other, they talk to each other through spirits in the walls, through ghosts, and we have ghost stories because we've been hearing these voices for a long time. So you would escape into animism to release yourself from the bondage of self, of ego, to reinvigorate and feel, oh God, it's nice to feel better. And as you gain enough ego, you will lose yourself, as Brad's saying. And I want you to picture that the reason why you do not have a placenta, you do not have an umbilical cord, is because your body needs and this is me being the deviant, and because you don't have either ovaries or gonads, that you actually are missing something on purpose, and that you're missing something on purpose to help you find the ghosts into that world, the same way your left brain and your right brain knew the other person was there. I don't know if you can appreciate how fucking spooky it must have been to literally have an entire lobe of your brain alive inside of you and you not know it. That your psyche would switch. Think about your ego. The If you understand what consciousness is, critical brain theory, it would be the abundance of agency that fights and terrorizes with other agency to determine who's going to be in charge, and that you could picture that that agency would be in the left brain for weeks. Then you would fall off a waterfall or something, or you'd fall into a cold piece of pool, and maybe it would switch. This happens now. You'll know that certain people, if they go through a traumatic experience, something's different. They're just like a completely different person. So think about where your assemblage point is. This is why I love that word so much. The assemblage point is sort of that center point, your fulcrum of who your psyche is, and that we are much more fulcrum specific. We're much more, we've been brought up to keep our fulcrum in the same place and to imaginate the whole time. When before ego, our fulcrum was probably everywhere. Psychopathic jaguar for a few months, and then you're going to turn into probably some elephant passive dude that eats bull dung. And that this would be one person just living in Africa, just having all these different experiences throughout their lives. So where are you now? You're at a precipice of objectivity where you're starting to step away from that, where you're hearing ideas that actually there is no objectivity, that this was a necessity we created. And you're tapping into a frontal lobe. You're tapping into some sort of neuron field. This is what the other lobe would be, some sort of processing field that is not here in this world, and that would be your placenta. And that you would
Yes.
be hallucinating the placenta the same way you'd be hallucinating what your right brain was or what your left brain was a long time ago. We don't know. Like it was probably some weird ass fucking possession, werewolf slash vampire slash all the other fairies slash all the other words that we had for this other kind of creature that takes over. That would be that kind of thing, and that you may be tapping into your divine hermaphrodite. I don't know what you're going to call it, guys. I don't know, because I don't want to freak you guys out. But whatever it is you're going to tap into is no different than when you're in a single mind tapping into a bicameral state. We are in a bicameral mind tapping into a tricameral fucking state. And the reason why we do not see that brain right now is because we are not in a world where we can process that it exists yet. But it's there. The ghosts are there. The stories are there. Everything is there proving it. You're just waiting for everyone else to catch up because we do not have enough layers of the onion to pretend that way. I think we need a mycelium. I think we need some sort of network where we can help each other pretend better, that has some sort of persistence, some sort of avatar persistence, where we would be able to project ourselves And after thousands of years of, or hundreds of years of experimenting with that projection, we would come up with a true wisdom of the crowd idea of who the fuck it is we even look like using the oracle mythology. The same way we did it when we had a single mind. We started to picture our bicameral state. There's got to be something more. And you end up with the Freemasons and all this other crazy ass mythic shit about two towers, when in fact you're just finally seeing yourself. That 100,000 years ago, you're like, how do I explain my fucking psyche? It's like, well, you need to think about two towers. You're not gonna be able to understand that back then. You're gonna have to wait till you're here. But now you've forgotten the question, because that was a 200,000-year-old question. Since then, you've been more like, how do I make better beer? How do I grow stronger pot? Or how do I, do this? I want a better cow, stuff like that. All of those questions have been forgotten, So this is all I got. You hear what I'm saying, though?
Oh yeah, it was just making me think when you were talking about the bicameral mind and the two competing minds being that there in the day. Is you said would you see any relation to that to like multiple personality or split personality disorder when trauma causes?
Yeah, schizophrenic would be the third cameral mind, guys. The person that we think is crazy and insane. First of all, they are. I'm not trying to romanticize them, but the reason why they are is because they're surrounded by people that don't process the world that way. That makes you crazy. That's all it takes. This is probably why we don't have as many hermaphrodites born biologically now. I think the social structure is so against it that it warps that baby inside the fucking womb. It warps that baby. It changes it the same way that it decides what sex should I be. It also says, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold off, Hermie. You're not coming out here with both those sets. And you might be inside going, why? Why would I not want it? Because they're going to fucking kill you. That's why. Because they're going to spend the rest of their life fucking torturing you. They're going to sell your body parts. You don't believe me? Read James's book about Animism. Because they're going to fucking do that. They're going to fucking sell your parts. So this idea that we have that if you come in with all this equipment and everything's going to be okay, it is not going to be okay. You will be torn out first. Do you understand? You will be torn apart first. And it's not because the world is evil. It's because this is what it takes to survive. Imagine how fucked you'd be if you were born into Egypt and you watched the society collapse around you. You were surrounded by buildings that you could not fathom how the fuck they were made. This is a very different kind of psyche to have growing up. You want a fresh world. You want to feel like you're always at the pinnacle of your existence. Otherwise, you get so depressed, you get so nihilistic. We already struggle with that now. Thank God we have enough amnesia. Fuck, if we could remember how many times we've been here before, we'd be like exhausted. We'd be like, guys, can we just stop at nachos? Can we just stop? 80s music is fine. Let's just stop here. We're good, That would be a big problem. That would be a big problem. You think the angst is bad now? It would go on. If the striving wasn't there, if the seeking wasn't there, if the mystery wasn't there, oh my God. It'd be really weird. So what does this tricameral mind look like? It looks like your imagination. I swear to fuck. It's closer than you think. It looks like your imagination. It's when you're playing a song, when you're creating art. You're in tricameral mind. You are. You're doing it. And a lot of people don't do that,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi, Cameron. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. So right before Wednesday's dojo, it was interesting. Something came to mind. I'm like, gee, what was going on before 1066? I have somebody in our family went back to 1066. And it's only because I was pondering, why does it take so long to emotionally mature, which I think is very connected to our spirit, our heart, our soul, the emotional maturity. And anyway, I'm glad I did. I just grew some more compassion for just takes a long time, and the dark ages were really dark. You know what I mean? We're really coming out of this. I just love how you put everything, James, because it really does. It helps me feel better about me, which is always good. Which is, yeah. But I used to get really like, what's wrong with humanity? And this is nature, and it's hard to grow emotional. And I think it really is tied to our spirit, to our light, to our soul. However you want to.
If you think
But
about, if
go
you
ahead.
think
No.
about if you think about hallucination theory, I could argue that the reason why we have AD and BCE, two different time frames, is because the 100th monkey, the majority of people had grown an I am on 0 AD. That the Je suis, the Jesus cult, the religion of Jesus, is truly the religion of having an ego. And that before that era, I'm not saying that everyone did it exactly that day, but like if you look at so think about the modern Bible probably didn't really start to really even be written until 300, 800 AD, right? Like, what the Pauline Bible that we have now. And then meanwhile, prior to like 300 BC, you have like the pinnacle of Rome, of Greek, of like ancient culture. And then there's like a weird sort of transitional state in between. And you could look at that as the era of animism has flipped its pole into the era of Je suis, the era of Julius Caesar is really the same archetype. It's the same kind of a thing. It's that I will rule my world, or rule a world that seems unrulable. And that we have that archetype precisely because that's happening. So I think that what's happening in the future is not really that hard to predict. If you think of everything as a sound wave, as a sonic fashion wave, because all fashion is a wave like that, all music is a wave like that, all things that are popular come in phases. We're going to go Nazi for a while, then we're going to go real Jewy for a while. We're going to go Nazi, then we're going to go Jews. And we're going to keep pushing those two. It's no different than red, blue light, red light, blue light, red light, blue light, right? This is how you tack. This is how you move forward. So next would be really you just have to imagine where we've been, but then just add that extra layer, and you can kind of use the complexity of each harmonic to kind of build. Well, geez, you can kind of picture what the next harmonic would look like. I can kind of picture it. I can kind of picture that next harmonic. I bet you that we're going to find out that this world was created by a single psyche, and that psyche is you, and that you're watching all these other psyches that you gave birth to in this world create their own world too. And that you yourself, everyone that you know, I swear to you, are figments of your imagination, that you've been brought up, that you've delicately raised in your imagination purely by imagining them into being and giving them compassion over 5,000 years. And that you ended up with an Enoch seed of, hey, this is what I imagine Adam would look like. And you have that seed, that genetic code, and all of us get to compare that code to. It's this a wonderful experiment, isn't it? Like, fuck. We are creating worlds. And I don't mean this to please don't hear this. I don't pull the God card a lot, but I'm so proud of all of you. I made all of you. I created all of you into this universe. And it's so amazing. You surprise me every day how unique you are. I hope you can appreciate that about me too. I hope that you can see, wow, look at this guy. Look at that. I didn't know I could grow that in the fungus of my toe. Look at this. This is fascinating because this would be the ultimate thing that you would be afraid of most, is that you're pure Shiva, pure Creatrix, pure Ganesh, pure, I can destroy all you fuckers. I can, that would be the terrifying part. And you almost want to not know that because you wouldn't want to fuck it up. You'd be so terrified that you'd mess it up. It'd take a while before you started creating it. You'd have to passively create it through an unconscious, Jungian, latent space, dark matter kind of magic. because you wouldn't be able to claim responsibility for what you're making. You'd have to project this onto yourself. This is dark matter. The largest collection of substance in the universe, by the way, is dark matter. Matter you cannot see, but somehow we know how heavy it is. I mean, it's so. This is why physics is so kick ass, guys. It's so kick ass. That's all I got with C Ham, but yeah, good topic.
I wholeheartedly agree with the spirit of this conversation and where it's gone today, although I feel like a contrarian regarding some of the terms we choose in this conversation to hold high and some of the terms we choose to hold low. And maybe I can get to that in a little bit. Lauren, I'd like to get to you first, though. I'm really interested in what you have to say.
Hey, I just wanted to share something about the placenta. I know I talk about New Zealand a lot, but I spent 6 months there and it was a pretty dilating experience. But one of the first things the person that I went to stay with took me to see was his children's trees where they had buried the placenta under it. I'll just read an AI overview real quickly. It's a deeply significant custom rooted in Maori culture to bury the placenta known as the whenua, the same word for land, under a tree. The practice, which is also increasingly adopted by non-native families or Maori families, symbolizes a spiritual connection between the newborn and the land. And it was just amazing to see that. It was very moving, and for that to be one of the first things that I was brought to see. And it's just too bad that we don't have something like that. I don't even know if you can ask to take your placenta home in our hospitals. I'm not sure. But one other thing I wanted to say, in regards to sine waves, I think everything is based off of that. And I think that's where the term, the coming events cast their shadows before them. So we're able to determine what's going to happen in a cyclical manner. That's really all.
Cyclical aspect is important, and the sine wave. And before Brad even mentioned that James had triggered something into his mind about that, I thought also, mostly in relation to the generational ebbs and flows that James has mentioned before, like he feels more closely related to his grandfather and less so to his parents. I have similar feelings. I am fully behind the spirit of attacking this notion of a white identity, maybe for different reasons than others. For me, I was raised in an education system where I felt more comfortable in the education system than I did at home. And uh, let me not digress. I thought that the way forward for equality was to eschew or to get rid of the color notion altogether. And so I was actually um, pretty rigidly opposed, like stood against, and it was because I was encouraged by influencers, but against things like critical race theory and stuff. And yet, as James was talking today, I was writing questions down, and they reminded me of like these look like questions I might have asked in critical race theory. Like I need to explore this, and maybe I have the wrong idea. Maybe I only heard about critical race theory being presented as this one thing because of just a couple of influencers and a couple of famous people, but I didn't like what I saw there. I thought they were trying to galvanize the color scheme and then just create equity to where, you were punished for being white. And I still fear that now. Like James is encouraged by seeing Hegseth arrested, and I am encouraged too. I think I'm encouraged. I think I would have been encouraged to think he needs to be locked up. But I also thought there was a time where I thought if Robert Kennedy became like a head of I can't even think of his role right now, but there are a lot of things that have happened in the Trump administration that when I thought I was a libertarian or whatever, that I thought I might have been in favor of, but everything has felt wrong and twisted as it's all unfolded. And likewise, I still fear that this whiteness will be punished by and I also like when I was saying feel contrarian about the terms, like I feel like Watiko is a form of enlightenment, and I feel like enlightenment is what can get us in the way of hearing the water, as Lori talked about, or hearing the land and feeling the soil. Um, like James said, we create our own world, and so I feel like when we pursue enlightenment, or let me step back and say that one of the most important things, James, that you've ever done for me was philosophically as a philosopher. You wear many hats, but what you did was you separated. I watched. And you didn't do this explicitly, like in a single sentence. I watched you do it over the course with where you led Andrew Kaufman. Basically, you comprehensively led him into a belief system that he latched onto, and I think he thought, well, my degree is close enough to this where I can be an influencer in this. I don't know. And then you tore it apart. And in these ways, I've watched you separate ideology from philosophy, and I think rightfully so. I don't look at I don't look forward to an age of enlightenment as an endpoint. And I believe that consciousness is triggered by trauma. I think that that might be what, and I think that that also works well with the ego being a Christian phenomena, or as far as the trauma that that Jesus went through, and that many people. I mean, we've been using trauma for a long time in a lot of ways, and I'm not trying to talk about Christianity specifically, except for that these ages of enlightenment. I'm not sure, like if a grand collective consciousness awakens, or if there's just a genius
Yeah.
and he lights up the room.
I wonder if you and I are learning the difference between Zionism and enlightenment for the first time. That those two things are actually different. And that it took us, just like compassion is not the same as consent, so too is enlightenment not the same as Zionism. What I mean by that is Zionism is a pure abstract idea. There's a promised land or time or place or era where if we will suffer enough or maybe kill some people, if we can suspend our morality long enough and do certain work, that we will then be able to reach this place called enlightenment, called Zion.
Why,
And
why is it why is it, James, that philosophy spawns so many isms? Because I feel like isms are ideologies, but they're all like, and I think this is because you have geniuses that come up and they do real philosophical work,
yeah.
and then you have shitbags
Yeah,
and just or
why does music spur so many licks? Why does poetry spur so many rhymes or verses? It's the same kind of question, right? So all the isms that we have are the kind of the lick or the snaz or the little sentence that we pull from this kind of art, which is the love of wisdom. So isms would be the poetry of wisdom. So all the isms that we have would be roses are red, and that this is really going to get you through a good 1,000 years of postulates of roses are red. You can build off this as a model. You can make other things. People automatically think, oh, you're going to say something funny because you just said roses are red. That's what you think now. But a while ago, when I would say roses are red, you would think, oh my God, I love this. And you're waiting for the next part. Then it'll finally putrefy. All the things that we find fashionable will putrefy necessarily. This is, I think, one of the big problems with. This is why I'm saying, Cameron, I think we're noticing difference between Zionism, and I'm sorry, I forgot the other word already, but it's because we are not here looking for this objective finished ism. We think we are. It makes the pursuit of ism much more dramatic, much more flamboyant, much more teen, you know, MTV esque. So it's more dilating. We have to find the right ism. That ism's killing America. We need to go back to this other ism, and this ism is never going to work. And this is us doing the same thing. Was saying, look, man, Led Zeppelin, I'm fucking tired of it. It's like, how fucking dare you say that? Are you kidding? You nuts? You can't say you're tired of Led Zeppelin. Well, look, I'm not trying to. You fucking take it back. And it's just like, how do you? There's nowhere to go because you have this idea of, I have a preconceived notion of this is what music is, right? So ism is the same way. It's just this is what I mean by the different layers of the onion. It's the same onion. It's just a different layer. So the ism is on top of it. So I think you're absolutely right about enlightenment. I think it's something that you're telling me now. I forget I do it. Holy shit, these are different words. Enlightenment is not. We will reach its state. It should be enlightening, shouldn't it? Like lightning. It should be enlightening. That's it. It should be enlightening. I feel enlightened.
Adam McQueen.
Yeah, enlightened McQueen. Oh my God, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah.
You
So
know, Kim, my thought on as far as Zionism and enlightenment, right? Zionism to me in the promised land seems to be just another aspect of my endpoint or whatever is out there. And for me, enlightenment always, Cameron, seemed to be more about not ascending, if you will, but maybe it's both, but more of a grounding, because a lot of times I'm thinking in terms of enlightenment is not sort of an escapism or reaching a plane, but it's more like seeing the perfection that you're already in. Which, James, that's why I love about the fact that this idea of that nothing's broken. I feel like that's sort of an aspect of trying to reach that sort of level of, because I know that it is frustrating to be in this world, right? It's frustrating to look around and see, but enlightenment almost being able to, like you say, compassion is not consent, but reach that piece with, okay, nothing's broken. You know what I'm saying? I function within the dysfunction being, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like that's almost more like what I see as far. So, for example, though I do think that humanity as a whole goes through stages like this, and perhaps like with the Dark Ages that mentioned earlier, right? And that there's a reason these things go cyclical. And so, as a whole, I think you could probably say that there are times when like the white sun reveals things, and you know, and there's sort of more awareness, but the enlightenment itself, I just feel like is more of like that understanding of the balance of both, so that it's not, oh, we reached this state of and now we're down here, but it's the being able to
yeah, and you know,
work with it all.
if we were, I think that we might find a lot more value if we even had the word endarkenment, like you know, because we would need the endarkenment to get away from the fucking light. And if you don't have that word, then you're living in Plato's cave, but you're never allowed to shade yourself. You're never allowed to go back in the cave. And if you're never allowed to go back in the cave, you're never going to tell yourself that you're in the cave, because you would have left once and you would have come back in and you wouldn't be able to admit it, because you're like, well, I can't admit I'm gay. I can't admit I went back into the cave. It's the same thing. I can't admit that I don't know who myself is without it. This is why it has to hurt. I swear to you, this is why you need someone like Jonathan that's going to say, "Well, you look like someone who's doing a truck stop." You fucking need that to. It's the only opportunity you would ever have to prove through witness that you are now yourself. That you would need the opportunity for someone to accuse you of that and for you to defend yourself in front of it. This is why I've said, I swear to fuck, if you catch yourself defending your ego in front of someone else, you should get a trophy. You should get some sort of little medal because you earned that shit. And unless we have the furniture of other people, of these other experiences to have that, we're not going to be able to notice that we're leveling up. And until we do, which thanks God we have likes, we have shares, like we just have these social scores now that give you just a little bit more inclination about witness. So I think it's important. We do not have a darkening science at all. There's no endarkenment kind of thing, which is a a necessitous need to step away from the light so you can survive. What the fuck is wrong with this? What the fuck is wrong with what I just said? Nothing at all. You know what would be wrong with it is if you had Wazimu, if you're a rotisserie chicken living in the sun and you just had to turn yourself in circles because you could not handle how bright it was, but you couldn't admit it because you're supposed to love the light. You're supposed to love the light. You're supposed to love the light. And then actually you just need some fucking shade because you're scared. You're tired. You need to fucking rest. Can I not do that? No, you can't because you're a white guy. You fucking can't. You're white. That's all I got.
Dude, James, I just finished Quantum Rapture. So your idea about the endarkenment, enlightenment with Lucifer, right? Yeah, the enlightenment, and then yeah, definitely good stuff, man. Go ahead, Glenn. I'm done.
Yeah, Clinton, you got your hand raised. We're about probably too late to get to you, but I do want to thank you. I really appreciated the confidence in your declarations today and what you just bring to the table every day, and it goes for everybody today. Lori talked about animism, and then I go shooting isms down. I would rather use like pragmatism as an example of like, I think the isms are like, this gets into the morals again. We talked last time about morality being proscriptive. I said that at least. I think that these jackets we wear, or I think that I think morality is important from, within, but it's just, whenever the world prunes you back, I'm getting all over the place, except for that, I'm fully in the spirit of animism. As well, at least I should say, I'm fully in the spirit of invigorating and bringing forth to full fruition this anima within me and all the animal powers and the animal kingdom and my connectivity to Mother Earth, and yet I worry what are the people to be left with if they're strictly put into a box of animism? Like, what does that create?
I'm so sorry. I actually have something else to say. If anyone needs to leave, that's cool. Also, because I have something else to say, Clinton, if you want to get last word in, I'm now stepping on Cameron's mod. Sorry, but I actually do have to say something. Cameron, Clinton, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I just was gonna say, it would seem like the endarkenment is when the growth happens, the personal growth, like with the plants, and like I tend to the garden all the time, and the flower growth happens in the dark. That's and you're using reverse kind of hydraulics in the plant. It's powering itself up as it's lowering moisture back into the ground, and a lot of the time we're not nourishing the soil, and people try to grow huge things from their plants. They want the biggest apples, they want to get the most stuff, and then they don't have any nutrients in there, and because they're not tending to the soil in which the things grow from. And then to the enlightenment thing, it would only bring out the gayness, because take, for instance, AI taking everybody's jobs with putting the finger quotes up there, because then we could just fuck around and look at the stars and philosophize or whatever. I think everybody was fucking gay. I think sexuality makes no sense to me. I think you're turned on or you're not. And the shame is what this allows me to say, like, I like it when you don't have sleeves on your shirt, Brad, because I don't have the confidence to wear no sleeves. And I like it that you can pull off the dad look with the cargo shorts. But for me, like, I like that. That's the difference is about us is what makes us gay. Queer is a genuine thing. And so it's that ownership, and the lack of a place is kind of what I hate. The isms too, Cameron. Anything with an ism is stupid to me. But the animism is the consciousness of anything you can see. Even the comic book you're reading has feelings. And so I just, that's all I really had to add. I just think that as you have less to do and more to create, then you're gonna get sexual as fuck. I'm Clint, and I'm a sexual deviant.
Nice. Yeah, ultimately, I think the self would require us to be sexually deviant in this way that we're talking about right here, which is just breaking from the norm of what's expected, and just finding that sexuality is so much more epiphyseal. It's so much more literally just a little spot in the brain called the epiphysis that you get to tickle with just the right feather, and that's glory holes are all over the place. There's all kinds of different ways that you can tickle those things. A lot of music that I used to play with this girl that was a lesbian a long time ago. That sounds so trite, sorry, but I was like having sex with her, and I started to notice her girlfriend was kind of getting jealous, and it's just because it that creative spirit, the epiphysis of that was just so sexually important. So I've felt that a long time when it comes to my intimacy and things like that. I'm sorry we're running over, but I appreciate that. Here's the announcement really quick. I'm asking this in front of the group, sorry, but Lori, could we do Dojo on Wednesday next week again? She's looking. And if so, I because of my video schedule, that would actually work better for me. She's thinking about it. You're muted, Lori. I think
It's all an affirmative, but you are muted, yes.
Okay. All right, great. Then that's all I got. Also, if you guys are up for radio, I'd love to do radio show tomorrow night. Lauren cannot make it tomorrow night. Clinton, if you want to join us, you're man, it'd be great. Cameron, if you guys want to join us too, you're welcome to it. I'll send the invite, and we can go from there. Sorry for running late, guys. I appreciate it. And Cameron, sorry for stepping on the end of me.
Not at all. I really appreciated what everyone brought today, and I love the fire. And thank you guys. Let's all unmute and say goodbye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Have a good weekend, guys. See everybody.
Have a good day.
Have fun.